Mad Wolf here, and today I want to talk to you about Saturn. No, not the planet, but the Sega system. Sega! Now, you might not even know this is a thing. Why? Because it came out like 94, 95 here in America, and it was obsolete in 98. So 3 years later. Consider it like the Wii U of Sega systems. Now, is that a bad system, or is it just misunderstood? Because honestly, there's a lot of people who are even like, oh, Sega's garbage, ha 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 ha, it's a 90s thing, ha 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 ha. But you know what, the funny thing is, Nintendo 64, which I will admit was a huge, iconic thing in the 90s, and it was really cool and everything, the graphics and blah 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 blah. I'll be honest, most Nintendo 64 fans only think of a few games, and they're usually GoldenEye / Perfect Dark, because same engine, same developers, etc., kind of same gameplay style. I like GoldenEye better. Star Fox, which, hell, that game is awesome. I'm still kind of pissed at Nintendo not making a new Star Fox game. They really need to get on that situation. And Mario 64, which hands down is probably the most iconic platformer of the mid to late 90s. It really did revolutionize platform games into a 3D perspective, and you know, they're still releasing it to this day. But aside from that, I mean, okay, yeah, there's some people that are like, oh yeah, there's Excitebike 64, oh, there's Tony Hawk Pro Skater. First of all, if you like Tony Hawk Pro Skater on the 64, you are crazy. It's way better on the PlayStation. Oh, there's Turok. Turok is not bad. It's interesting. It's very it grinds on. It just keeps dragging. So I mean, once again, it was a cool concept for the late 90s. You know, hunting dinosaurs and everything. Was it a great game? No, but I can see how some people are nostalgic for that. But you never hear anybody talk about Killer Instinct Gold. You never, like Lego Racers, that's another one. Oh yeah, I played the Nintendo 64 Lego Racers. And I'm just like, okay, well, still, these are like a few games. Now, what's interesting is the Saturn had even more. And granted, a lot of them were PlayStation ports. You know, you have things like Tomb Raider, Area 51, Die Hard Arcade, Road Rash. You know, there's a lot of them. Power Slave, Loaded. There's a lot more games that were for the Saturn and PlayStation than there was PlayStation and Nintendo 64, or even Saturn and Nintendo 64. There was even a Resident Evil game for the Saturn. It came out a few years later than it did on PlayStation. I think there was some legal corporate stuff going on in that, which I cannot stand that crap. But yeah, they did do a Resident Evil on this system, and then shortly later, Nintendo 64 had Resident Evil 2 for Nintendo 64, which is weird. Resident Evil on Nintendo in the 90s. So, you know, there was more variety on this system, and that's pretty cool.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Learning green is good. Look, Bob, no giddles.
So there is a sad story with this system, and I have to kind of get into some engineering jargon, which I don't understand fully. So from what I gather, there's two graphic processors in here. They handle two different kinds of graphics. One handles two-dimensional graphics like sprites. The other one handles more 3D graphics like polygons, and etc. Well, in the 90s, late 90s, that was kind of the new craze, is we all wanted to see the next 3D games and all these things, and the system does have some good 3D games like Croc, which ironically was conceived as a 3D Yoshi game, and it was pitched to Nintendo by Argonaut Studios, the guys who did the original Yoshi's Island. And Nintendo said no. So they changed a few things, and it turned into Croc, which is this really cute, simple platformer. And, you know, you're going around, you're saving these gobbo guys, these fuzzy gobbo guys, they're pretty cute. And it's just a simple, fun platformer. And it's on Saturn, it handles it beautifully. I think the gobbos are made out of 2D sprites. But there's also Hang On GP, which, I don't know if you guys know the Hang On game from the arcade, Sega Genesis, but it's kind of road rashy. You're on a motorcycle, you're racing through checkpoints, you're not punching anybody or whacking them with chains or forcing them off-road, you're just racing. And Hang On was a pretty fun arcade. I played it like once or twice at Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, and you have the actual bike and you're leaning and everything. It was a pretty fun arcade. This one is a little different because it is a completely different style, but for a early or mid-90s 3D game on a system not a whole lot of people played. It has some beautiful graphics. There's 6 stages, there's all these motorcycles you can ride, and no, there's not as much options as, say, Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo actually came out yet later, and it was years in development. Gran Turismo is a great game. It has a lot to offer, but at the same time, you know, for what the Saturn offered, I think Hang On GP was a pretty good one. But I digress. So, there's also games like Virtua Fighter and Dead or Alive, but here's the big problem. So there was a lot of games in Japan that were two-dimensional, and they were actually pretty fun. Japan felt America didn't want these games. The Japanese side of Sega, they're like, no, you know, America's not wanting this. They want more like Doom and, you know, all these like first-person shooters and 3D graphics, so we're not even going to bother releasing them over there. And these are some pretty fun games. You got games like Botsugan. You got friggin', this one's kind of funny, but Linkle Liver Story. So if you look at the case, it even says Linkle Liver Story. Now, it's supposed to be Wrinkle River Story. It is a translation error. And it's a two-dimensional Zelda clone, and it looks really cute and all this. We never got it here in the States, and that is very unfortunate because I do think mid-90s, you know, there were a lot of kids that, you know, whether they're 3 or 4 or whatever, they would have seen these colors, they would have seen the graphics, and they would have just fell in love with it. There's also other stuff like a two-dimensional RPG called Cyberdoll, which is a cyberpunk RPG. It looks really cool and everything, and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Never released here. If I saw this, let's see, 96, so I would have been 8. I would not have cared if this was 3D graphics or not. I would have wanted to play this, which is ironic because we just got a cyberpunk RPG, and I'm like, I like Shadowrun better. But, yeah, so, you know, that's some stuff that you got. There's a Cthulhu point-and-click game called Prisoner of Ice, released in Japan for the Saturn. Never came out here. There's some other friggin' two-dimensional games. Some of them I don't have because they get really, really expensive. But, you know, and Sega of Japan argued that, you know, we do not want these games because we just want the 3D games. We want the next gen, which is partially true. You know, think of how much Americans, you know, dump on, oh, we need the next Xbox, we need the next this because the graphics, or the PS4 Pro or whatever. And I'm not trying to badmouth America, it's just we always do want the next latest thing, and we don't really have a tendency of looking at fun games, you know, especially for kids. You know, the kids just want, oh, I just want the new Fortnite, or, you know, they don't care about what's fun, they just want what's new and popular. And unfortunately, the Saturn just didn't have what it took to be popular. Now, there is a reach around. So, if you are among those that actually play video games because they're fun, and not, oh, well, it's new and popular and blah, 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 blah. Well, there's this little thing on the system. It's a cartridge input. And if you get something, which is an instant replay plus, they're usually about $40 to $60, so about the price of a brand new game. Not only does it let you break the region encoding, the region lock, but it also gives you so much more memory. Now, yeah, this thing has internal memory, much like modern systems. It actually uses a watch battery on the back here of this port. But, yeah, so if you get an action replay cart for the Saturn, you can actually play these really good Japanese games. They have Dead or Alive, once again, Cyberdoll, Wrinkle River Story. There's so much variety of what you can play. And some of them you don't even need to read the Japanese, like Botsugan. Botsugan is one that I love. But at the same time, there's options, and I think that's pretty cool. I do think Sega of Japan actually did kind of screw us over, but at the same time, sometimes we deserve to be screwed over like that because we don't appreciate what other people are putting all that time and effort into making.
Logan, it's you!
Nobody here alive.
Sophie! No! 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 Thank you.
So here's another interesting thing, is where does this system really shine? Because honestly, one of the first things you think about when you think of Sega is Sonic, right? Everyone loves Sonic, and yes, it's a meme. You ain't gonna go fast. God, I want to punch people in the face who keep doing that. Get go fast. Yeah, you're talking about Sonic X. It came out in 2000. I'm talking about Sonic the Hedgehog. Came out in 91. And with chili dogs, yeah, that's the cartoon. The funny thing is there's a bad cartoon and there was a good cartoon. And then there was a awkward cartoon, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but anyway. So you think of Sonic when you think of Sega, right? Well, there's only technically 3 Sega games for the Saturn, and 2 of them I don't have. One of them is Sonic R. It is literally a Sonic racing game, and I think it was kind of a tech demo to show, hey, this is what 3D Sonic would look like. These are the controls and the speed you could go. Every time I see a reviewer or anybody talk about Sonic R, it's never good. I've even played it with a friend, and I'm just like, dude, this is not very good. How much did you pay for this? Usually that's about over $100. Is what I hear, and I'm like, I do not want to pay that for this game. Another one is Sonic Jam, which is sadly just a collection of previous Sonic games. Here's the sad part, I have those for the Genesis. I love them on the Genesis. My Genesis still works. So why would I want to buy Sonic Jam, especially when it's kind of expensive? It's kind of a collector's thing. It's expensive, so I don't have that. The third one is Sonic 3D Blast. Yes, this is one that I do have on the Genesis. Yes, it's actually a little bit different on the Saturn. The graphics are a little bit more beautiful. The special stages are different. I love just the look of 3D Sonic in the special stages. The music is different. It's got that nice crisp CD audio. Sonic 3D Blast is definitely one I would recommend people to grab for their Sega Saturn if they have it. And the funny thing is, no, it's not Mario 3D. It's not Mario 3D. It's not Mario 64, which is 3D. So sorry about screwing that up. It does, interestingly, kind of play like Mario 3D Land, Mario 3D World, which came out just a few years ago. And here's this Sonic 3D game, came out 96, I believe, and not that bad. It is not that bad. So, thing is no, we didn't get Sonic Adventure until much later, and Sonic Adventure has its own problems, but it's also really fun. So, the thing is without Sonic, well, where does this system really shine? Because, once again, that's Sega's mascot. Well, you get your other games, you got Tomb Raider, which Tomb Raider is awesome on the Saturn, Tomb Raider is awesome on the PlayStation. There's one called Mr. Bones, which, you gotta admit, it's pretty interesting. You play a skeleton, and he was brought back to life by this evil alchemist vampire dude who's trying to utilize an army of evil undead to take over the world, because evil is like absolute, and it's like controllable and whatever. And then here's this skeleton who has the blues because he's pure of heart, and it's just weird. Like, each level is a completely different style of game, and I believe it was done by the same people as Echo the Dolphin. So another Sega classic that you will find on the Saturn, which some people laugh at because it's cheesy 80s kung fu theater kind of style cinematics and everything, but it's a pretty fun game, and that's Shinobi Legions, aka Shinobi X. And I don't know, I think it's a pretty solid platformer, action game, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. But yeah, honestly, what I would say the system really shines at is the arcade games. Games like Virtua Fighter, which that was like the first 3D fighting game that any of us had seen. There might be one or two beforehand, like Balls or something, but at the same time, this is what popularized like Tekken and Soul Calibur, Soul Edge, that sort of deal. You got Last Bronx, which I think it uses the same engine as Virtua Fighter, but completely different story, different characters. It has its glitches. Do I care about the glitches? Hell no, I just care about the fun fighting game. You got Dead or Alive. I already love Dead or Alive. You got your Hang On. You got Bust a Move. You got a ton of arcade games. Botsugan, which is one of the expensive Japanese titles, and it's just a simple spaceship shooter, is probably one of my favorite games on the Saturn. It might even be one of my favorite spaceship shooters, and that's saying a lot. There's a lot of games worth checking out on the Saturn. Now, here's the flip side of that. Is it worth the cost? Well, because I'll be frank, this system, my collection of games for it, the controllers, all that stuff, I would say I spent something around $2,000, $2,000. Video games are expensive, I won't lie about that, but there's also cheaper game systems that you can collect and build a collection on. Systems like the Genesis. I have a lot more games on the Genesis than I do on the Saturn. And what's also interesting, talking about the Saturn and the Genesis, is the Genesis was still making games during the development lifespan of the Saturn. And, there's some Saturn games that I just simply won't buy because they are too expensive. Like Panzer Dragoon Saga. Yeah, that one's like $2,000 right now just for the game. Complete, in box, and all that stuff. Magical Knight something, and that looks like girly Sailor Moon, whatever. And some people like that sort of thing. I'm not trying to knock it, it's just, it looks like it's aimed at, little girls. And that one's also expensive. I'm sure Arctic Vixen would actually like that game. But would I want to pay $1,000 for it? No. I'm sorry. Resident Evil. I think there's a legal thing involving both Resident Evil and Tomb Raider for PlayStation, because they kind of turned into PlayStation things, but originally they were meant for the Saturn, from what I understand. And Resident Evil for the Saturn didn't even come out until 98, and it came out on PlayStation in 96. But Is the Saturn version worth $200? I don't know. I really like Resident Evil. It's one that I've been debating about. I hear there's some new creatures in the Saturn version. Yeah, I don't know about that. Quake is actually pretty good on the Saturn. I think that one was relatively inexpensive. I think it was like 30 to 50 that I bought it for on eBay, and that's disc only. But I do think the arcade games is where the system shines. And if you think of an actual arcade cabinet, not those cheapy ones you buy at Walmart that are like $300 and like they're 3 feet tall, so you gotta hunch over and that sort of thing. But if you think of an actual arcade cabinet, actual pinball cabinet, whatever, you're looking at a couple of grand. Afterburner is one I was looking at, and I'm like, holy crap, that's expensive. So, is it worth $2,000? I think if you're a die-hard collector, you really like Sega, you really like arcade games, it's really worth checking out. And that said, the system itself was not $2,000. It was about $150, which is still cheaper than some of the modern systems. But the games itself, building a collection, that can get pricey. Contra Legacy of War is one that I do enjoy, even though a lot of people hate it. And I think that one was like $100 or $70. It was pretty up there. And once again, disc only. That one's cheaper for the PlayStation. Not by much. But the arcade games, that's where it shines. I really love Dead or Alive. Really love Hang On. Hang On is really cool. I do have Road Rash, ironically, for the 3DO and the Saturn, just because I really love Road Rash. It's a really cool series. So, I don't know. Maybe these games caught your attention. Maybe you like little quirky games like Robotica, where it's like a Wolfenstein 3D dungeon explorer in space, which I think the levels actually are random. They randomly get generated, so that's pretty cool. But, maybe you like the quirky games like Mr. Bones. Mr. Bones is kind of cute. I don't know. It's got a grisly 90s cuteness to it. Kind of like real monsters and that sort of deal. So, but maybe the system just speaks out to you. Maybe the name speaks out to you. I don't know. House of the Dead is another one. This is a game that's not coming back because from what I read on the internet, they actually lost the source code. So unless they've redesigned the entire game from the ground up, which they do that sometimes, House of the Dead, the original, not coming back. So there are some really good games on the Saturn. It's a question of, is it worth your money? Are you going to spend the time with it? Are you going to appreciate it? Are your kids going to appreciate it? That I can't answer. I know I appreciate this. I know Arctic Vixen appreciates this. But maybe I enlightened you a little bit about a little history or something. I don't know. And if you did like this video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe or whatever. I'm not going to twist your arm and say you better do it, because that's not my style. But yeah, until I see you guys in the next show, just remember, stay cool.